As always, the Minding Your Business podcast is brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network, the Binge at onabinge.com. You can check out some phenomenal podcasters, phenomenal. Whether it's the Startup Life podcast with Dominic Lawson, whether it's Nothing But Buckets, Just Blurred, Let's Be Real, and Quotally, many others. You can check them out at onabinge.com. Make sure that you do that. If you're interested in starting a podcast, if you're have an existing podcast, you're looking at joining a supportive network, email me as you can for any communication regarding podcasting or the show. Ron, R-O-N, at the MYB, so the Mary Yellow Brown podcast.com. Ron at the MYB podcast.com. We are here Friday, September the 20th. Man, things are just flowing by. I've got audiences with Spreaker. I've got audiences with Facebook. And we also have Periscope in. So shout out to all of you. Derek Sykes, what's going on, my brother? Thank you for joining in on the day. Hope the day has been without obstacle. It's been without setback, as well as your week. And I hope that it's brought you to this very point. And we're going to get into our subject. But first, you know what we do.
What we do here is go back.
Thank you so much. I'm your host, Champ Ron. This is episode 109 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Again, hope that today has brought you joy. Hope you're looking forward to a great weekend. And I hope there's been no setbacks and it's just been a marvelous week for you personally and professionally. Today's subject, and actually before we get into the subject, there's been so much going on in the news. I'm not even going to try to cover everything. Even trying to do a Ron's rundown because there's so much going on. One of the things that's interesting is Airbnb looking to go public in 2020. For someone that's in real estate like myself, that's very interesting. They reported $1 billion in revenue in just the second quarter, which is crazy. That's a crazy number. I don't know who's verifying some of that, but if that were legit, look out for Airbnb in 2020. And look out for me to be involved some kind of way with Airbnb come 2020. Of course, these vaping illnesses are becoming big all around. I'm actually going to do an episode on vaping because I think it's an interesting ordeal that came with the business of vaping and now how all of a sudden it's being reported with all these illnesses and sicknesses with it. So anyway, I'll do an episode on that, so no worries there. But again, thank you for joining in today. What we want to get into is for this episode number 109, if you can believe it. Episode number 109 of the Minding Your Business podcast, which is just crazy. The business of family. And just to go ahead and jump right in. For many of us, if not all of us, family is extremely important. We place great value on our relationships with our family members, whether that's spouses, whether that's mother, father, sister, brother, cousin, whatever that is. But often when we get into our professional lives and whether we start a business or we do a combination of the two, though we try our best to manage those two lanes between our personal and our professional, our family and our business or our work life, whatever that is. And what I want to make sure to cover today is just some ideas and some best practices. Now, let me preface by saying this. I am no relationship coach. I don't claim to be, never have to be. I'm no matchmaker. I don't know everybody's situation. I haven't met all 7 or 8 billion people that's reportedly on planet Earth. So I don't know everybody's mindset and preferences and family situations and family relationships. I don't know. Okay, and I'm not going to claim to know. I can only speak from my perspective and what my joys, my strengths, my weaknesses, my wins, my losses, my fears, my insecurities, my courageousness. I can only speak to that for me. Okay? So when I'm speaking today, I'm hoping that it can help you, but I'm not speaking into your life because I don't know your situation. All right? And I'm not, again, an expert on any of this, other than I've got some experience with it, again, from my perspective. So I want to preface it having this particular subject discussed. For those of you that are joining on social media, if you want to share information, or if you've got insight, share in the comments, and I'll make sure to address that. So from a family situation, let me speak from my perspective, okay? I started in business. My very first business that I ever did was called RGB Sports, and I was looking to connect athletes to business opportunities with RGB Sports. That was way back in, I think, 2002. All right. So, I did that, and then I moved on, right, as you evolve and you're doing other things. But starting out as a single guy. So you're a single man, you're a single woman, and you're starting out in business. So really, your family is all kind of more remote from you. Your mom, your dad, sister, brother, cousin, all that. But typically, you're the sole person living in your house for the most part. So as a single person, you start in business, and you don't have, one of the benefits that you have is you don't have the responsibilities that you have, as I talk further, when you start picking up a relationship with a significant other or a spouse, and then certainly when you get to the point of having children. All right. So as a single person, one of the advantages that you have is you can make decisions without really considering other people in your household, because you typically are a household of one. When I was a household of one, I made decisions based on the one. When I wanted to go do something, or if I wanted to make a decision to start a business, like I mentioned, RGB Sports, when I wanted to go do something, I didn't have to consider anybody else's ideas, thoughts, mindsets, anything. It was just me. It's just Ron. All right. So I went and did as I pleased. And one of the downsides of that is I didn't have anybody really close to me that could help shape the direction of where I was going, or even provide a alternative perspective into what I was doing. So there's some advantage to not having that, because it doesn't cloud your judgment or your view by having someone else's voice. But there's a disadvantage by not having that voice. There's some things I possibly could have avoided in terms of pitfalls that came about as a result of me not having someone else with their two sets of eyes looking at what's being done, what's being said, what I'm being told, right? What information is out there. And so that can affect your business. It can affect your personal life in terms of maybe your work life, in terms of what interviews to go on, or what jobs to maybe look to apply for, or what job offers to accept. And so many of you that are listening to this podcast or this particular episode, you may be single. It may be your choice to be single, for the rest of your life. And I'm not going to get into the reasons why people choose or remain single. That's solely for you to determine. For me, I progressed to a point in my life where I wanted to be a family leader. I desired to be. I got started kind of out doing some things early. So some people got their first taste of their own nightlife or their interactions with the streets and things like that. They got that interaction once they left their mom's house, their mom and dad's house. So they got to college, or they got out of college once they got off mom and dad's payroll, whenever that time came. For me, that time came a little earlier than some others. So I got to a point as I was approaching my mid-20s that I desired to have a little bit more. Now, I share this with people all the time. When I met my wife, I had met my wife in college. We came across each other. We started attending a church together. Our family started attending, and everything just kind of grew from there. But we started out as friends. And I know people hear that's the cliche and that sort of thing. But as you're starting out, if you're a single person, even if you've got business and you're building that, there's some parallels. But as I was starting, I was in business. I was working in banking. We both had graduated from school, and we started out at a friendship level that was void of the lust of relationships and the lust of gender and all that type of thing. Now, we were cool. You know what I mean? I mean, we could talk, we could do different things, and so that allowed, I think, both of us to have clear minds, and we knew what we both wanted, right? And we weren't shy about sharing what we both wanted, okay? And I encourage you with that. Again, I'm not the relationship guy, but business encompasses a lot about relationships, personal and professional. And I encourage you, if you're single, that make sure that you are open about your intentions and transparent about that, and then look for that in the other person, is that level of transparency. That level of transparency will take you far as you go down that next pathway and those next steps. What I mean by the transparency is you have to be willing, if there's something that you like. I'll give an example. If you know that you want to eventually relocate your business to Chicago, Illinois, right? So let's just say you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and you want to be able to, you're a single person, single man, single woman, you want to expand your business from Atlanta to Chicago. If you're going to do that, and you know that's going to result in you wanting to relocate to Chicago, if you start dating someone in Atlanta, young woman, young man, you need to be open about that interest in moving to Chicago, particularly as you and that person develop whatever it is that you develop. All right. Some people withhold that information. They don't want to share it, or they're not transparent about it. And then when the relationship becomes serious, all of a sudden they drop the bomb. Oh, I'm going to Chicago. All right. Which may not be in the other person's cards. Because again, people have their own things going on. For my wife and I, we were young enough that we were on the come up. Right. So what I'm saying may not necessarily apply to someone that's a little older and a little more seasoned, and you've got things already established. I can imagine that's a whole different animal. For us, we were in our mid-20s, early to mid-20s. So we're on the rise. We're coming out of school. We're trying to figure out what we want to be. All right. So if you happen to be in that situation, or if you have children in that situation, make sure they're listening to this podcast. So I met my wife. We're cool. We're going out. We're not rushing things. One of the key factors as a best practice is my wife does not care about the glitz and glamour of things and being a bride and all that type of thing. She wanted to know that I was going to be committed and all in. Okay? At the time, I was rounding into my maturity level. I kind of wanted to have one foot in and one foot out. Y'all come across people like that. They kind of want. I didn't want to fully. I wanted to have some commitment, but then I wanted to have one leg over here. You know what I mean? So I wanted to kind of balance things that way. As a man that's single, that's going into a relationship. And my wife was not. She was at a point where she had come to the terms within herself and the comfort level within herself that whoever she was going to be with was either going to work for her or it wasn't. Okay, meaning that she wasn't going to go chasing, she wasn't going to browbeat, she wasn't going to give, ultimatums and all this type of stuff. Either I was going to be on board or whoever it was going to be, or it wasn't. So she was okay progressing and doing things on her own without having a relationship. That comfort level resonated with me because she wasn't in this mad rush, right? And sometimes as people, when we get into this rush, right? And so when we get into a rush, that's when mistakes get made. And that's when you could lose focus of what you're really trying to accomplish out here and accomplish with the person that you're with. So as a best practice, I encourage you, just like you do with your business or even in your work profession, you take your time, you kind of survey what's going on, and you've got to understand that there's a time and a process for everything. So you start your business, you do this, you do that, you do this, you start interacting with customers. So that, you create this, kind of process flow. Hopefully that's what you do. Maybe not. That's certainly what I do. But it was the same thing personally with the relationship. And so that developed, that trust and that sort of thing has to be proven. And let me say this. Nothing's proven until it's been tested. Okay? People do not like to be tested. They'd rather be ignorant. That's in general. That's not all people. But people would rather be ignorant. People would rather not know. Right? That's why many people, it's not to just put yourself in the way of temptation or different things that go on, whether it's with your business or personal. But nothing's tested until proven, right? That's why you have research and development in your business, right? So for you to know if your business model or whatever it is that you want to do is going to work, you do what? You test it, right? But we don't like to do that personally because we don't like the reality of something not being what we've placed in our mind for it to be or what we hope for it to be. We don't look for it for what it is. In general, men are much better at looking at things for what they are. We don't create the fantasy world of something. If it's blue, it's blue. Now, women in general tend to look at the world through a lens of what she wants it to be or what she sees it in her mind and how she's processed it in her heart. That's where you get some disconnect between men and women. All right. Men, we are able to assess things and judge it for what it is. We don't try to make it into anything else. If the book has 100 pages, that is 100 pages. We don't try to guesstimate or insinuate that it's anything else other than what it is. Now, there's pros and cons to both mentalities, right? And I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. We got to get away from that. We try to put this, we're always debating who's right, who's wrong, and who's the, you know what I mean, to make ourselves feel better. And we have these endless debates. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what your process flow is and how comfortable you are, not just in your own skin, but how comfortable you are not having what you dream of for that moment. So people like to have relationships and things like that, but at the end of the day, are you okay being alone until you get what you want and not allow the outside noise or pressures? And again, this applies to your business too, not allowing the outside noise and pressures, NYB, to make you get into a rush. Because when you get into a rush, some of y'all right now, you're wanting to rush to be married because you want to be part of the club, right? Let's call it what it is. You want to be part of the club. You want to start a business so you can be part of the club. So I can go to the networking meetings. I want to get married so I can go to the couples events and I can hang out with the married couples. I don't have to be excluded, and I can follow the pathway because I'm this age and I should be here because I'm this age. Some of y'all, it's a thing where you assess yourself against other people and you stack rank. So you're always stack ranking your life and your moves against what you see other people doing on social media or even in real life. And because you're always doing this stack ranking, you're never really happy. You don't find joy in things because you're always trying to measure up to something. And people do that in their relationships. And so they think, oh, well, because I'm 40, I should be this. Or because I'm this age, I should be that. The key to that sentence is should be. Should be from who? Well, from who else is the influencer. And we get that in our business. My business should be here because I've been in business 10 years. Or I've been in business 1 year. Or I've been in business 50 years. And you've got to train your mind to get away from that, from measuring yourself against other people. Because, there's a lot of 10-year overnight successes, personally and in business. Okay? A lot of relationships took time to grow to get to where they are, just like a lot of businesses take time to grow to get to where they are. There's very few, if any, overnight successes. Very few. And so in your relationship, and again, I've told y'all this already twice. I'm going to tell you a third time. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm not a relationship expert. I just understand the psychology of it as it relates personally, professionally, and business. And I have some experience with it that I'm sharing. All right. So Kim and I progressed. We get married. We were 26 years old. All right. That's younger than most people that are doing it now. Not so much in the past. In the past, people would get married out of high school, kind of in their early 20s. We got married. We were both 26 years old. Kim, matter of fact, my wife had just turned 26. I had been 26 for a few months. So we start out. So now I'm no longer the single man. Now I'm a married man, and that carries a different level of responsibility. Now people revere things different because of our religious-based society and things like that. For us, our marriage is our commitment to a shield, a commitment to the progression of our families uniting. That's what that means. It's not the piece of paper that's filed down with the county. It's not the pictures that we take together that we post on social media. It's not how people may revere it because of how we view marriage, even still, with all the challenges and all the stats. And one of the stats that we hang on to as people, because it supports our fears and insecurities, is we say, all marriage is in, divorce. 50% of marriage is in a divorce. Now we'll challenge every statistic in the world, but that one we hang true, right? Whoever came up with that stat, 25 years ago, we've been hanging on to it ever since. Same, another stat we hang on to, that we've hung on to forever, is we're 50% of all businesses, fail. So you notice that failure stat we hang on to for both, for business and for personal, for marriage. So the business marriage fails 50% of the time, and then the personal marriage fails 50% of the time, according to statistics that most of us can't even quote. We don't quote the source anymore. We just say it because it supports whatever fears and insecurity. Anytime we get statistics, particularly as Americans, that support our fears, we run with those, right? We run with them. Now, we'll fact check everything. We'll fact check the president. We'll fact check sports, especially in sports. If someone says Michael Jordan averaged 28 points per game for his career, someone's going to jump and say, no, man, it was 30. It was 30. And they're going to run, fact check it. They're going to pull it up on Google and say, no. Michael Jordan averaged 30.7 points or whatever it was for his career. We will. But we'll hang on to the negative stats, for life. Here's the thing about as you transition and you become married. You become a married woman, you become a married man. The time that you invested as a single becomes different. It becomes rerouted, right? Because now you got another person in your household, right? Who has needs, who has desires, who has aspirations, who has dreams, who has direction that they see life and how they see you. And then how you see them. Okay? Same with your business. So now your business is launched. You've married into your business. You're the first employee. You're live, right? You've got your tax ID number. You're going to market. So now you're married. Your business is married to the market. All right. So now it's different than when it's just flyers on your flash drive, or it's just an idea in your head, or it's just talking points with your business partners or your homeboys or whoever. So now the expectations have changed. Okay, from society, because when you have a live business, society now, you open your store and you're live, you unlock that door, people expect you to be open for business. You got the lights on, you standing there, you're open for business. Same when you become married. Now you're open for business. So now what? Now you got to start operating. A lot of people are fearful of now they got to start operating. Because most people don't show up. Same with Mary. It's a challenge to be the leader. It sounds good, right? People want the accolades. They want the reverence of being the leader. That's why we hold being married in such high regard. We like the reverence of leadership and the benefits. But it's the work that takes place. Now, my wife and I have been married a little over 12 years. And we've had a great life. We're not without obstacles. We're not in any level of perfection. We collectively and individually have our great joys and our strong suits, and then we have our obstacles. Yes, we do. We have both. When we first get married, now my wife's in school, I'm working, I'm developing business. We're doing different things, right? And so we've come together. I had her support, which was beautiful, and she had mine. So now we're supporting each other in what we want to do. Okay? As we're going through and as business is developing, it's different because although we're unified in what we're doing, and you find this in your significant other, your spouse, you see the world different. I'll give you a religious context to this. For those that read the King James Version of the Bible, there are four Gospels, right? At least that are included in the Bible. Now, there's other books that wasn't. But for the four that were included in the Bible, you had who? Matthew, you had Mark, you had John, right? Luke. So you got these four folks who were, supposedly they were around the Christ, who was named, at least in the Bible, Jesus. So they're all around him, but they give four somewhat similar but different accounts, right? Because all four of them saw things from different angles. Some were closer to Jesus than others when you read it, right? So, and they all have different perspectives. It's kind of like this. I've heard this analogy before, is that if you write a newspaper article that says the Vikings destroyed the Patriots, which, in the NFL, I don't know if that happened, but if the Vikings destroyed the Patriots in 2019, that's a sports headline, right? In 1645, that's a war headline, right? The Vikings destroyed the Patriots. Oh, man, where was the battle taking place at? What happened? Who was involved? Did thousands of men die? Did they take them captive? Whatever. That's in 1640 or whatever. In 2019, that is a sports headline. We don't think about that. So again, you got different people who could be seeing the same headline and refer to it as something different. That's what happens in your relationship with a business partner. It could happen in your relationship with your spouse. So my wife and I, because we see, as we should, we see the world different. And because we see the world different, that can lead to some frustration because you want to go this direction. And when you're single, you're used to making that decision and going. When you're not single, you do have to consider, or at least you should, if you're intelligent, man or woman, you should consider the thoughts and and the ideas of the other person. So now that slows you down. For me, that has been ultimately, over the long term, something great. And the reason it was great was because I needed that slowdown. I needed that slowdown. Slowing things down and looking at it holistically, that my wife helped me do, has kept me out of so many binds, man. So many binds that I know I would have made some different decisions as a single man. So you progress just like you do in your business. Your business is now married to the market. So man, now you're out there, you start doing business. All right. Then at some point, for many of us in our relationships, children came along. Your spouse becomes pregnant. The wife becomes pregnant, and now you have children. So for me, my oldest daughter is 9. She was born when I was 29 years old. So when I was 28, I found out I was going to be a father for the first time. Matter of fact, quick story on that. So this is 2009. 2009, I'm watching the NBA playoffs. This was the year that the Lakers won. They had lost to the Celtics the year before, so the Lakers beat the Magic in the NBA Finals. I was sitting watching the playoffs. This was probably May of 2009. Now, my wife and I, we were coming up on our 2-year anniversary, so we were going to St. Louis, Missouri. We were looking forward to a great time. Our anniversary is June 23rd. So we were looking and excited about going to St. Louis and talking about it. I planned the trip, paid for. It's all paid for. We all ready to go. We're going to drive up to St. Louis. Her and I were going to have a great time. All right, so I'm watching a playoff game. I'm sitting there at the house. I'm watching a playoff game. And, my wife's in the bathroom. And she had been in the bathroom the whole half of the first half of the game, which was crazy, right? So finally she comes out, was like, this is like halftime's in it. We're going to the third quarter. So I'm like, hey, you all right? What's going on? You good? And she said, well, I've got something to tell you. And so she shows me the little test or whatever. And y'all know the little pregnancy test and all that type of thing. So she shows me that. And as crazy as I was, I'm like, oh, well, what's that? I'm asking her, hey, what's that? What is this? She's like, boy, you know what that is? I said, we're pregnant. And I see the little plus sign on there and whatnot. So I'm like, what, for real? You know what I mean? And, it just went from there, man. I was just, like I say, man, and you're never ready for that. For those of y'all that have children, no matter how much you think you're ready for that, you're never ready. And so, man, I'm hype. I'm ready to go. So, we go and we went to St. Louis. Matter of fact, it was the week that Michael Jackson died. We happened to be in St. Louis, there downtown St. Louis. But so anyway, my oldest daughter is born February of 2010. I'm 29 years old. My wife is 28, and we're parents for the first time. So now, just like in your business, so equate this to your business. So, you've been doing business for some time, and now your business is ready to franchise, or your business is ready to go to the next level. Maybe you're expanding, you're getting a second location, or maybe there's a new product set. Maybe your overall product is now produced some sub-products. All right, so that's what I'm equating to personally when you have children. So now when you bring children into the relationship, now you've gone to a whole nother level. Okay, so now you've got your spouse and you've got your children. Okay. One of the first things that happens is now your time's getting divided up even more. Now, when your children are young, now I'm going to speak through the different stages, obviously, of having children. Because my oldest is 9, I don't have the personal experience of having teenagers. I'm heading that way, but I don't have the personal experience of being around, having my kids be teenagers and have my kids be young adults and then adults and that sort of thing. I haven't got to that point. But I can speak to children. So we had 3 children essentially back to back. My oldest daughter was born in 2010. My middle daughter was born in 2011. And the youngest, 2012. All right. So all within a span of about, let's just call it 33 months. So a whole lot changed. Time was divided, and here's the thing. When you get to where you have more kid than parent, let me equate this to sports. And this happens in your business too. So when there's 2 parents and then there's 1 child, you can double team. Just like in basketball and sometimes in football, you can double team, right? So you got an advantage. All right, you have 2 kids, you're playing one-on-one defense. So you still have some advantage, but now you're getting to a little bit of a disadvantage because there's just as many kids as parent. When you get 3 or more kids, now you have to play zone defense. And that's a completely different ordeal. It's a completely different defense. It's a different structure. In your business, as you develop, you have your main product, and say you develop secondary products. So you got one secondary product, then you develop another, or you franchise, and so you get one franchisee here, and then another franchisee there, and another franchisee over there. So your time and devotion to things changes. I found myself, obviously you're not getting much sleep in them early days as your kids are waking up at night and doing that type of thing. Same in your business. Those early days with your new product or service, you're probably not sleeping much because you're spending a lot of time here and there developing this, talking to customers, assessing the financial piece and things like that. And so all those things come into play, right? But as you're grooming through that, one of the things that becomes vitally important is you've got to maintain the same level of energy, the same level of enthusiasm that you had in the beginning when you were single and it was just you and you didn't have the pressures of fill in the blank, right? And as kids progress, they get older, they get out of diapers and they become toddlers and they become young kids and they start going to school. All those things come into play. Okay? They all come into play. And they create their own obstacles and challenges. And my wife and I are not void of that. I mean, it's difficult to maintain. One, you got to maintain the spousal relationship. So you got to maintain, and that's the most important. You got to maintain that connection. Then you've got that with the children. Same in your business. Even though you got 4 new product sets, you still have to cultivate and maintain what? The main product, the first product, the one that got you started, the one that set your business off. And that's a challenge. And you find companies have challenges when they start branching off and doing a lot of different things. And then the quality, the service metrics and things like that of the original product begins to suffer. because they're spending so much time and their time gets diluted sometimes. As a best practice, one of the things that I've learned is the time management. So one thing that I don't do in my business, and this is coming from a man that lives in a house with all women, with all ladies, is I don't spend a lot of time on nonsense. And I don't spend a lot of time on things that aren't productive. Right? So if it's not productive, if it doesn't generate a level of either revenue or progression towards the next step, I don't make time for it. Not that I don't have the time. I don't make the time. Okay? I just don't make the time for nonsense. All right? Why? Because you've got finite time. So the one thing that doesn't change as you progress from single to spouse to having a household of children and things like that is the 24 hours you get in the day. That ain't changing. Okay? So the time that I had as a single man to the time I have as a married man with now 3 children, 3 girls, that 24 hours didn't change. All right? So I still got to make things happen. So the time where I might have had patience or spent time in a lot of BS or a lot of back and forth, I don't make that time now. Right? Because I've got to devote my time. It became of more value as I got older and as I began building my infrastructure, whether it's my family or my business. All right? And you have setbacks in that. You're going to have setbacks all the time. Anticipate those. But one of the benefits that I've seen, that I've experienced as I've grown my family, is the support of your family. Now, how do you gain support of your family? Now, I see people on social media. Some of y'all may do this. You have the expectation that your family should be supporters of your business by sharing it, by liking it, and most importantly for a lot of people, by spending money in your business. And your rationale is that because you're family, by blood or by marriage or however, because of that, there's an obligation and expectation that they should be supported. That is not in itself unreasonable, but it's short-sighted. And I see a lot of business owners, just like a lot of people in relationships, they're whiny. Nothing's worse than a whiny spouse, and nothing's worse than a whiny business owner. Or even a whiny coworker. Whatever it is. Nothing's worse than whiny people that have a problem for every solution, and everything is self-centered about them and what they don't have, and this and that. That's difficult to deal with, is whiny people. And so your family, your spouse, your children, your other extended family, they should support by being an infrastructure with you and helping understand the commitment that you've made to the business. No different than the commitment you made to your relationship and to your family, especially your immediate family there in your household. So there should be that understanding. Everybody in your family may not need, even if you're selling water, everybody in your family doesn't have a need for water right when you say they need it. And one of the things that you learn, that I've learned, is with anybody that you talk to in your business, if they're the right target and you approach them the right way, you're going to have an opportunity to do business with them, family or not. If you go into things whining, nobody wants to deal with a whining, bickering, browbeating business owner. Just don't. Do you? Nobody wants to surround themselves. You see the business, they get on Facebook, they get on Facebook Live, and they're whining about, family don't support them with this, families don't support them with that. And some of these folks, the reason their family doesn't support them is because they know the BS that they bring. Yeah, they know about the BS, so they don't deal with them. They know how things transpired on how they're doing what they're doing. So anyway, I'm sharing this with you so that MYB, you, as you're grooming through your family, you understand that your family will support you. My wife, my family, they're very supportive because I'm transparent. I share with them what the goals are. I share with them the method to the madness, the time commitment, things like that. And we have an agreement on how that can be supported. And they're included in what we do, not so much in the day-to-day rigmarole, but the overarching vision. You've got to share that with your spouse. You've got to share that even with your children. And my children are very young. They're kind of coming up, through school, elementary school kids. But you've got to take time to share with them when, for example, for me, when I travel to go meet with a bank, I'm sharing with them what that is. What am I looking to accomplish? I share with them when I return. Here's what happened. Here's what was said. What do you think about that? See, that inclusion and that feedback that you get, one, can be extremely valuable. Two, it allows them to feel and be part of the process. And when people feel included in part of the process, they're apt to be more supportive. When they're not included in it, it's hard for people to support things they're not included in because then they don't know. They're on the outside. And so I encourage you with your family that if you want their support, you've got to include them to some various levels, the involvement in the process. With your business, the same when you're working with your spouse. They've got to be included in the process. So as you're progressing and as your kids get older, and I imagine as they become teenagers, there becomes different challenges when they become young adults, because everybody's progressing, getting older. The clock doesn't stop in life, right? It's not like a YMCA game where they're stopping the clock and doing this and that. The clock keeps rolling. It's a rolling clock in life. So you're getting older. Your kids are getting older. You're experiencing things different because you've never been, whatever age you are, you've never been it before, right? So it creates new challenges. I'm embarking on 40 years old. It's knocking on my door. I'm 38, all right? 40 is gonna be a different animal for me. I remember being 18, 19, 20. It doesn't seem like that was that long ago, but now I'm closer to 40 than I am to 20. All right? So I've got different mindset. I've grown. My kids, right? When they were 1, 2, and 3, that's different than 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So that's different for them too. So we're all experiencing these differences at the same time, which can create angst too. Same in your business. Your business will grow. You've got these 4 product sets. You'll have great joys that'll come. Customers that gives you a great review. You get some kind of great publicity. You get a teammate that achieves a goal or something like that. Those things happen, and the obstacles happen too. Right? Maybe the customer pulls out. Maybe it's a rather significant customer that pulls out for whatever reason. Or you have a teammate that doesn't fulfill a goal, or maybe doesn't pan out. Maybe things happen to your health. Whatever that is, those things can come about. And so the process of it is what you have to fall in love with. All right? And you have to manage your own mindset, your own fears. This whole process that I've been talking about today, MYB, it really comes down to managing your own fears and insecurities. And I know we don't, especially on social media, we don't like the words fear and insecurity. We have insecurity about being insecure. But it's true. It is what it is. All right? You have to manage those things because like I mentioned earlier, we use statistics to support our fears, to justify them. And we use statistics also to justify our joy sometimes. This is going to work because 99% of blah, blah, blah. And to really gain the success, you have to manage your own fears and insecurities. We all have them to various levels. We fear loss. We fear embarrassment. We fear change. And all those things, everything I've talked about today is centered around all of those things. Right? Going from single to married with children, those are changes. They create different fears. One of my concerns is, not being there for my wife, not being there for my children. That is a fear. It's reasonable. Not being able to deliver. So what do I do to mitigate that? I've gone away from hustling, and now, I'm working. I'm working, working on the business, and that's what I'm looking to groom into 2020. For my family, we have different family goals and things like that. Because I was growing the business and we were doing different things, a lot of transition, we didn't do a lot of traveling as a family. This year, we went back again to St. Louis. So it was 10 years after my wife and I went together. Now we went with 3 girls, our 3 daughters, and had a wonderful time. Just to St. Louis. It sounds simple. I know people travel all over the world. And I get to travel all over for business, but when you're talking about going with 4 other people, and you're unsubsidized, by the way, so there's no government check hitting our mailbox. There's no bank of mama and daddy. Nobody died and left an insurance check. It's just us and our grind. So because of that, we haven't done a ton of that. And so to be able to get back into that was something we relished and really enjoyed. And same with your business. There may be some things in your business that you're not able to do because you're grinding and you're moving. But I encourage you to keep doing it. It's a challenge starting a business. A lot of people want to do it, but few take the step. Right? A lot of people get hyped up, but few go out there and take the step. And the step's not perfect. No different than you get married. Your spouse isn't going to be perfect. They're not always going to look. The way you might look at 24 is different at 34, 44, for all of us. If that's the basis of what you're looking for, that changes. If your fear is that change and what it may mean to you and what other people think, then you're going to have challenges. We care very little about what people think, because people are going to think whatever they're going to think. My wife and I, we can't worry about that because we can't control that. And just like this podcast, minding your business, we mind our business because that's none of our business. But MYB, challenge yourself that if you want to progress, you want to start your business and have it progress, if you want to start your relationship or start your marriage pathway, challenge yourself to get past your own fears and insecurities about what something will look like, about it being your type. Many people get into business when it's not their type. It isn't what you went to school for. It isn't, what you maybe had an initial passion for, but you learned and groomed that passion. It's the same with dealing with people. Okay? So you've got to get past that piece of it to walk into the destiny that you would have. And family and business can definitely coincide. They can exist together. I've been an example of that. Many of you have examples of that. My family is extremely supportive, and we're looking at other things that we want to be able to do. And my wife and I have talked about business that we can do even together, because we haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. She kind of has her business, I have mine, and we've married those two together. But to do a business together is a dream of ours, and we would love to be able to get to that point where we are able to do a business together. And we'll see what 2020 entails. But I encourage you, as we go out of the summer season, we're heading into fall, and you start looking at 2020. If you want to progress through, if your desire may be to be single and kind of stay that way. If that's your choice, that's your choice. But if it's not, and you want to progress with that, then do that. You're taking risk on both sides, and I'm gonna close out the podcast with this. You're taking risk on both sides. When my wife married me, she was taking a risk. When I married my wife, I was taking a risk. When I started my business, I was taking a risk. You know that. Everything you do after you get out the bed, you're taking a risk. What are you comfortable with? How do you manage what's between your ears and in your heart? And have the courage to drive and go through it. Even when it's not conventional, it doesn't look like what everybody else is doing. And we often talk outside the box. But you don't have to do things outside the box if you're not in one. If you don't place yourself in a box, then you don't have to do anything outside of a box. Outside of the box is when you're standing in one and you want to do something outside of it. You don't have to do anything outside the box if you're not in the box to begin with. Don't place yourself in the box. All right? So I hope today's podcast, I wasn't trying to preach, this wasn't a message, but if you want to send in tithes and offerings, Ron at thenyppodcast.com. You can send in your tithes and offerings. Those will be gladly accepted and put to good use. So listen, I want you all to have a enjoyable, safe, prosperous, relaxing weekend, void of all obstacles and hurt, harm, and danger. And share this podcast with your family, with your friends, with 10 of your enemies. Pick them out, tag them, share this. You can check the podcast out on all the major podcast platforms, from Apple to Google to SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, whatever it is, YouTube. And hit me up, again, at Champ Ron on social media. Connect with me. I'd love to be able to do so. If you got ideas for the show, if you're interested in being a guest, definitely hit me up. Look out for my next podcast, which is called Accrued Interest. It's a banking podcast. I'm going to bring you the best of banking history, bankers from all around the country, and connect you to what's going on in community banking, how they work in the communities, how different things from a compliance standpoint with the bank interact with you as a customer of whatever financial institution that you work with. Listen, I'm your host, Champ Ron. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. I appreciate you. This is episode 109. That's in the books. Thank y'all so much. Again, have a joyful weekend. I'm going to be traveling some in the great state of Michigan on next week. And then we're going to be back next Friday for another episode of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Go be great.